Hey everyone, welcome to the actual first weekly chat. And I guess I kind of confused some of you guys. The original chat video, that was more me asking you guys, hey, is this something that you want to see? And even though I showed what was on the desk and stuff, it was more just of a test and to see if you guys are interested. So this is actually the first one, and this is where I actually took some questions. So there's a couple things that I want to talk about. And I have my laptop just below the camera here, and I have an outline that's kind of, gonna help me get through this without going too long, but still getting things done. So the format that you guys commented on and how you would like it, it might be longer than 10 minutes depending on the questions, just because what's gonna make you want to post a question if I don't answer it? But that video that I did 3 weeks ago got 200 and some odd comments, and just thinking about answering all of those and say each one takes a minute, it'd be very, very long. And so I figure, hey, if I'll just grab a bunch of questions, usually the first ones that comment, because those guys, they're the ones who are on my videos like that, whereas the ones that came weeks later, they're slightly less priority. I want to get the people that are always watching my videos, like constantly, every day they're checking YouTube, things like that. So I want to cater to those guys first, and it's not bad doing that first come first serve basis. But we'll get into the chat format. So the first thing that we're going to do is show what's on the desk, then we're going to talk about tips and tools, two separate things there, and then we'll get into the ask less. So all you guys that have the low attention span can watch those first couple minutes, and if you're not interested in the questions that people have to ask, you can go to another video. And that's what we're gonna do. So on the desk, the first model is gonna be a Space Wolves model. I posted this on Facebook. Some of you guys are followers on Facebook, not on the actual Awesome Paint Job page, but they search for me, Lester Bursley, and they get on my page. And I usually post on there pretty often what I'm currently working on, or when I get to a stopping point and I go ahead and snap pictures. And this Space Wolves model is just, airbrushing, control, paint consistency for freehand, things like that, just playing around with it. And then I was practicing some true metallic stuff on a Captain Tycho model. And I mean, this is really up close. Most people aren't going to see the models this close, things like that. But I was just basically playing with colors, airbrushing most of it, and just trying to work with a lot of the different Vallejo Air metallics to try to get an effect that I really like. So that's pretty much what's on the desk. With Games Day coming up, I'm probably not going to show too much of that stuff because it's super top secret, and that might be hurting it, and I might be late again on my week chat. So you guys know what's coming up with Games Day being what, 2 months away, something like that. So okay, now that's on the desk. I currently don't have any commissions in work, so that's pretty much it, is those two models that I was working on as of late. And now we will get into some tips and tools. So my basic thing is kind of a tip and a tool, and it's really good stuff. Like, first off, this is a book that I got, and by the way, you guys are going to hear a lot of ums and ands in this since it's uncut. But basically, this book, the Color Mixing Bible, is awesome. I got this on Amazon for, I don't know, 15 bucks maybe. And it shows that, well, I'd say the most important part of it is the first section, talking about the different mediums and the science of color. All right, here it explains, triads, tertiaries, the way light reflects color to you. Like, the reason you see green is because that color is absorbing all the other colors reflected on it except for green. It's bouncing it back to your eye, and that's how you see color. Cool things like that, basic stuff for figuring out, these are, I'd say, fundamentals for learning color theory and things like that. And that's kind of important stuff if you're serious about your painting and wanting to know how to get more into it. So once your blending's down, how do you get into, you know, picking the right colors for the model? And that's really what separates the artists versus people who just apply paint to the models. I'm still working on it. Sometimes I don't think I pick the best color choices to complement the other colors on a model. And that brings us to another point. I was watching Jen Haley's DVD, forget which one it was. I think it was the one that Cool Mini or Not sells. And she brought up this book, right? This is a Color Index. I think this is by Jim Krause. And I'll link this stuff below on Amazon so you guys can check it out and see if it's for you. But basically what this thing has is swatches, and it's not just showing you basic colors. I'll show you this section here. It'll show the colors next to each other, and you can kind of figure out, like, depending, there's sections in here that'll have intensities, cool hues. So if you're wondering what colors look good next to each other, like this stuff for Eldar definitely, and Dark Eldar, you can see what colors look good next to each other. Now you can't look at this and say, oh, well, how come it doesn't say hawk turquoise or something like that? You have to have a sense of being able to look at a model online and kind of be able to guess what colors they're using. I don't know, it's maybe a sensation or something like that, where you can see a green and you've painted enough to say, okay, that looks definitely like Goblin green or whatever. So I mean, don't think, okay, well, in the book on page, you know, 75, third from the top middle, what color is that less? I don't want to hear that. That's, you know, that's stuff that you get over time, and no one can teach you how to identify a color with what you have. And this book will teach you how to mix that color, or kind of give you a good starting point. So these are tips, and they're also tools. This one I just got recently, and I love it when I'm trying to figure out, you know, what colors I want to use in paint and stuff. And then this was the fundamentals book. So these two books are definitely awesome. I wasn't completely truthful with you when I said that was the tool. I have this thing that I made up out of PVC pipe, and it was just holding my models. So it's not practical for army stuff, but it's basically PVC pipe put together, a bunch of T-joints, some elbow joints, and it makes this basic shape, and it holds little pieces of PVC, which I can hot glue models on, which I don't have any right now because they were all pretty much done off of those. But basically, you know, you paint the model, whatever, put the PVC back in there, and it holds them straight without anything touching it. Also, if you have it just sitting on your desk, good old-fashioned cling wrap, just lay it over the top of the models, and what that'll do is it will prevent dust. And if you're airbrushing, that creates dust and things like that, and you won't have to worry about it. Even if you have your cup with water nearby and you splash a little bit, it'll hit that and protect your models. So maybe, I don't know, maybe if you guys want to see how I made this, it was basically, that's what it is: 6 T-joints, 4 elbow joints, and then cutting PVC pipe to join the two together. So this is, I don't know, I wouldn't even really call it a tool. This is a DIY, do-it-yourself project. So if you guys want to make something like that, I don't know, if you guys have a better way of doing it, go ahead and show us. And, you know, whatever you have holding. I've seen cool people do stuff with alligator clips, things like that. So that's pretty much it. The tips and tools section there. Actually, in the tips, I have some video tips for you guys that are actually making videos or thinking about making videos. Let's see, how much time are we on? Oh no, we're 9 minutes in. Okay, so the tips section, right? What should, for you guys that are actually making videos and wondering what you should be making videos on, Necrons are the latest thing out. So, you know, in the interest of doing things that people are going to be searching for right now, would be to do Necron models. Another thing that's more specific to me, and I'll do it for you guys, and I don't know if other video makers that are you know, popular out there or whatever are willing to do this, but for instance, Judge Gudge, I was talking to him today actually, and I did the Angels of Absolution tutorial just this morning, and he already had videos on the stuff, just showcasing models that he had. And I said, hey, why don't you go ahead and make that a response to that video? So anyone who's watching that video, they might not know there's other Angels of Absolution stuff out there. So go ahead and make it a response. So any of you guys, if you know, I did a tutorial on Ultramarines or something. If you have Ultramarines that you showcased, or say you have a tutorial of your own, or you did an unboxing, don't just give me random stuff. Don't send me Eldar to go on a Space Marine video. It has to do with the video. Or even if you did a, what are they, the tributes that they do, the pictures, and they play music and they're like, yeah, you know, kind of get you all hyped up about your army. You can make those video responses. So then that way people who might not have known you might see your videos and say, hey, I like what this guy's doing. It's just another way to kind of get out there. Now, I don't think everyone will be willing to do that, but I'm telling you right now, I'll approve it. If it has to do with the video, not just, oh, it's a model and your video has a model in it, it has to be, you know, pretty specific about it. So if I'm doing a Space Marine on a certain chapter, I don't want to see just a Space Marine. It has to be about that chapter. But, you know, I got plenty of videos like that. So you have my word, I'll approve it if it has to do with the video. So now moving on to the questions. So I only grabbed 11 questions because there's stuff that I can talk about and elaborate, and some questions were way too big. Some people, you know, asked 5 questions in one little entry, and that doesn't count as one question. And there's some big questions about commission stuff, and yeah, we'll get into that. So the first question is, hey Les, I was wondering about thinners for my airbrush. And this is by J Coburn 134. J Coburn. Okay, so what I use is a 1:3 water flow aid mix to Liquitex matte medium. So basically, if you had a bottle like this, you would fill it up with matte medium 3/4 of the way, and then that top section you'd fill with water and some kind of surfactant, whether it's soapy, slightly soapy water or something like that, to break surface tension. That's basically what I use to thin my paints, and I made that because I ran out of Vallejo thinner and I remember the consistency. And what this does, why it's better than Windex, besides Windex causing, you know, lung irritation and creating infections, is it thins it enough to where you can spray it really well, but at the same time it has enough viscosity to not let the paint separate super fast. Like if you do it with Windex, all the pigment will drop to the bottom, and then once you get down to about, you know, almost empty, all you get is colored water, and it'll spray onto the model and ruin it, and, you know, whatever you've been working on. So I tend not to use that stuff, but that's the thinner. So the second question is, what kind of army do you play with? If you play at all, I mean, if you're just a commission painter, then lucky you. And this is by Super Spartan 55. I don't really play. I'm a collector. I like the idea of owning an army that's fully painted, and I love seeing, you know, a full army laid out and painted up and stuff like that. But I never really got into playing. I like the fluff. I like the GW models, but I just, you know, the game stuff doesn't really appeal to me. I just like to paint stuff that I think looks cool, and, you know, 40K's got really cool looking stuff. So that's pretty much it on that one. So the next question is, my main question would be about paint control. Seems every time I thin my paints and try to paint, it just flows everywhere on the model. And this is from Robert Hauser. That's something you get over time, you know, trying to figure out where, you know, how much do you need to thin in order to get the paint to be very smooth. I think the most common thing is to thin 1:1 and paint, but don't, you know, if the paint's still wet, if it gets semi-wet and then you try to apply another coat, what you do is you break through the top part that's almost dry, push it into the bottom, and then you get crumbs and, you know, brush strokes, things like that, because you're not, it's just like, you know, cake icing, and then if you rub your fingers across it, that's what you're doing to the paint when it's not completely dry. So if you thin your paint 1:1 and you don't get the color you want in one coat, let it completely dry and then put another coat on top of it. A blow dryer will speed that up, but, you know, it's better to put on thin coats multiple times than to try to glob it all on at once. There's some paints that will be magic like that, like black. You know, you can coat with one coat even if you thin it 1:1. But that's a good place to start. If it's not working for you, you can thin more, thin less, You got to play around with it. So the next one is, let's see, I have customers who ask me often for fine brushes like 20-aughts and 30-aughts. I tell them all the time that keeping a nice point on your clean brush will hold more paint better. Maybe you could address this issue. And this is by Scandalous Rogue. And I totally agree with him. It's really not about how small the brush is. It's really, I mean, this has to go with what you feel comfortable with. So if you're comfortable with those 30-aughts, you might have a problem if you don't have slow dry to actually keep paint wet on the brush because there's no belly. But I mean, that's really what separates the cheaply made brushes versus the quality ones, is the quality of the tip. That's why a lot of people talk about Kolinsky's holding tips, and there's really good synthetics out there that hold their tips too. And that's what it really comes down to, is how sharp that tip is, and also how you maintain your brushes. If you don't take care of them, the tip's not gonna stay together for long, because usually if there's anything messing with the base of the tips, which is what points the bristle, that's usually what will cause the problem. So let's see, the next question, how do you paint tanks without brush marks? This is by Deathcore Commissar. Very thin layers and waiting for each layer to dry. I mean, it takes longer, but it's really the only way to do it with a brush. And I mean, if you don't have an airbrush, I mean, that's just the way you're gonna have to do it. If you can get by, if there's a colored primer that kind of matches what you're trying to do, then go with that. But yeah, if you're doing it by brush, you just got to put it on thin, let everything completely dry, and then put on another layer. And I get a headache just thinking about doing it by brush again. So the next question, do you have any tips as to what I should do to start up a commission service? This can be a whole nother video on its own. My straight up answer is don't do it. I mean, it will kill your soul. If you truly enjoy painting, don't do this, because it's not fun. You might think, oh, I like to paint and doing it as a job is fun. No, it's not, because if you do it for pleasure and comfort and stuff, and then you turn it into a job, then it's not like that. And I'm telling you from experience, some people might love to paint and love to do commissions. I'm not one of them, and that's why I'm slowly phasing it out of what I'm doing so that I can get more videos. And you guys are gonna see a ton of videos flow forward after Games Day, and that's what I'm doing, is compensating for the no commissions, or no new commissions I'm taking on. So you'll see a bunch of cool stuff come out. But yeah, if you love to paint, I mean, you can try it out, but it takes the fun out of it. It took out the fun for me, and that's why it's not the way I want to go. It's not the end game for me. But if you guys have interest in wanting to know how I started my commission business, how I got my name out there and things like that, then I can do a separate video just on that. So tell me in the comments below, like, yeah, we want to see a commission video, and I'll do a video just on that. So the next question is, I wanted to know what and where you can pick up the thing you used for cleaning washes. I think it was called Mineral Spirits or something close to that, not sure. And possibly a clear explanation. I can't talk right now, it's 10:30. Let's see, possibly a clear explanation of pin washing. And this is by Virel. And let's see, mineral spirits can be purchased in the US from a lot of different places, like Walmart, or DIY stores like Lowe's and Home Depot. And basically all it is a surface prep for any place that carries paint to paint like the walls in your house or the outside. It's a surface prep liquid that cleans and degreases at the same time. It smells like lighter fluid, things like that. And you can find them at any of those stores. Now, if you're out of the country, maybe someone, you can put in the comments what country you're from, and maybe someone from that country can say, hey, this is what I use. And I'm not sure, names change depending on where you're at, but over here it's mineral spirits. It's not the same as turpentine, not at all. Turpentine's a little bit more abrasive on the gloss coat that you'd be protecting the model with. So, next question, how do you keep your brush tips pointed? By Mam2087. basically cleaning your brushes properly and forming the tip before you put it away. Like the Masters brush cleaner here that I've been sporting ever since I started making videos. It's basically brush soap. I mean, it's soap with a conditioner in it, and put a couple drops of water, agitate the brush, and once it's clean, you grab some of that foam that's still in there and then form the tip on a paper towel, your hand or whatever, and get it just pointed the way you want. And when it dries, the soap will turn back, you know, solid, so it'll make the tip nice and sharp and keep it that way. And what that does is it's training your hair. It's kind of like if you had long hair and you held it back and you put a hat on. The more often you do that, you start to train your hair backwards. That's what that stuff does, is when it dries, it'll keep the bristles together and keep them, you know, bent and basically keep them exactly how you want them. So that's the way to do it. There's companies that sell brush molding stuff. I think Mona Lisa makes one that's just for molding the brush tips afterward, but Masters brush cleaner cleans and gives you the stuff to be able to do that at the end of it. Let's see, next question. Have you had any problems with your paint bottles or pots since you've put them on their side yet? Just like this, and this is from Alfonso the Trader. And no, nothing unusual. I mean, people that complain about the tips clogging, I think a lot of that happens with the Reaper paints too, because the Reaper paints, since they have the agitator in there, they have this weird like V-shaped thing that keeps the agitator out of the tip so it doesn't clog. And usually what I had to do when I had my Reaper paints and I was using them all the time is I took a drill and just drilled that thing right through so that it wasn't obstructing the tip, basically. Because if the paint's chunky and it gets clogged up in there, it's so hard to clean out. You can't just stick a pin in there, because since it's a V shape, the pin just gets stuck. Whereas the Vallejo stuff, it's just a straight up, you know, eyedropper tip. So pretty much if I grab a paint and I try to squeeze some paint out and it doesn't go through, paper clip, keep it on the desk, and I poke the tip out, and then you know, squeeze out the paint that I need. And you don't have to do that often. That's usually when I grab a paint that I haven't used that's fresh. That's what happens. But I haven't had any unusual things happen with my paint at all. So let's see. Next question. What do you use to fill gaps in your models? And this is from 350ZCS. I use, most of the time, I'll use Squadron White Putty. It's easy and I have it, so I use this to fill most of the cracks. And I use this instead of green stuff, because green stuff, if you try to sand on it, if you don't, you know, I'm pretty messy when I sculpt, so I need to be able to go back and clean that up. And green stuff, if you try to sand on it, once it gets warm, it starts to peel up like hot glue almost. And white putty or something like it, like Evercoat glaze or anything like that, when they dry, they become brittle. So they're sandable and they sand like a dream. So for filling gaps, Squadron White Putty. Next question, mask the difference between Vallejo model color and game color. And this is from Razor Gore 111. So kind of stealing this from Vallejo's site, but you know, I read it, I put it in my own words. Is model color is geared towards scale modeling. If you see the palette right here, and most of the model air color, which is, you know, takes from the colors in the model color line, model air. Yeah, these colors, they're all earth tones and military colors. So you have lots of dark browns, desert yellows, greens of every color, and then grays for all your naval stuff, things like that. It's geared towards the scale modeling community with the tanks and all the military stuff. So that's what their color palette is. Now, besides the obvious different changes, because game color is for fantasy, so it has, you know, the brighter color selection right there, and it's got a wider color spectrum because it's not covering just military stuff. It's trying to cover anything you're going to paint, whether it's an underwater dragon or, you know, a guy in chainmail. It needs to cover it all. So very nice color spectrum for what we do. And the other thing about game color is it's actually formulated to be a little bit more durable than model color, because Vallejo knew that you're going to be, you know, handling the models because they're game models. So they made it to be a little bit more resilient, and I think they have a slightly higher pigment count than Model Color because they know that you want to cover these as quick as possible and not have to spend so much time layering the stuff on. I haven't really seen a difference in that, but I believe that's what they say on their website. So that's the end of the questions there. Like I said, sorry there was so many questions and I didn't want to make this, you know, a 3-hour video going through all of them and explaining them. But again, you know, there's a lot of information to put out, and if I skipped over your question, I apologize, and you know, just stick it in next week's question. Just copy and paste it, and eventually I'll get to it. So if I answer a question and some, you know, some new viewers come over and they ask the question and you guys know I already answered it and you know the answer, feel free to answer them if you want. That'd be helping me out. And if not, you know, I'll address it and I'll say, hey, I already answered that, check this video out. So until I see you guys next time, that's it.